right. Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. It's funny, like every single day, we're bombarded with so much information about food, what to eat, what not to eat. It can get pretty overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a constant stream of advice and opinions coming at you from every direction.
Exactly. And today, we're going to tackle this head on.
Okay.
We've got some fascinating material in front of us, and we really want to try to figure out, like, why is it so hard for so many of us to eat healthy consistently?
Mm.
And more importantly, what can we actually do about it? We're not talking about crazy fad diets or anything like that, but like real sustainable changes.
Right, exactly. No magic bullets here, just practical strategies and a deeper understanding of the choices we make.
So we're going to really dig into the core differences between, what we call healthy food and what gets labeled as junk food. And we're going to explore why these differences actually matter, not just for like, fitting into your genes, but for how you feel, your energy levels, and your long-term health. And then the part I think everyone's really interested in, how to find that balance,
Yeah.
enjoying the foods you love without feeling like you're constantly depriving yourself.
Yeah, because that's where things often fall apart.
Yeah.
It's got to be sustainable, it's got to be enjoyable. Otherwise, it just won't last.
Okay, so let's dive into, those foods that are actually good for us, those foods that really fuel our bodies well. When we talk about healthy food, our sources point to things like, fruits, veggies.
Yeah.
Just imagine all those vibrant colors on your plate.
Right, those deep greens, those bright reds and oranges, nature's candy almost.
Exactly. And then there's whole grains, like, oh, that chewy texture of brown rice. And lean proteins, think of grilled chicken or fish, things that keep you feeling full and satisfied, not just for a little while, but for hours.
And let's not forget about healthy fats. They often get a bad rap, but they're absolutely essential. Those good fats you find in nuts, avocados, olive oil, they play such a crucial role in how our bodies function.
Right, they're like the lubrication that keeps everything running smoothly. And our material actually gives us some specific examples to illustrate this. Brown rice, broccoli, those delicious berries that are bursting with antioxidants. So I guess the question is, what's really going on inside us when we're consistently choosing these kinds of foods?
Well, it's about the density of nutrients. It's like each bite is packed with these little powerhouses of goodness that are working hard to keep you healthy. Vitamins, for example, they're like tiny mechanics making sure all your systems are operating at their best.
Okay, so like making sure your engine's running smoothly.
Exactly. And then you've got minerals, which are crucial for everything from strong bones to proper nerve function. And then, of course, fiber. That's like your internal cleaning crew, helping to regulate digestion, keeping your blood sugar stable, and so much more.
So it's not just about, filling your stomach. It's about providing your body with what it needs to thrive on a cellular level.
Exactly. You're giving it the building blocks and the high octane fuel to perform at its peak.
And our sources really emphasize the long-term impact of those consistent choices. We're talking about supporting all those vital bodily functions, playing a significant role in preventing chronic diseases down the road, giving you sustained energy to power through your day, even influencing your mood in a positive way. It's about building a stronger, more resilient you.
It's like investing in your future health.
Exactly. And here's something that really stuck out to me. The source highlights that just 5 servings of fruits and vegetables each day can actually lower your risk of heart disease. Like, that's not some distant health goal. That's something tangible you can do right now.
Right. It's not about deprivation. It's about adding those good things in.
It really makes you think about those little choices we make every day. Now, let's be honest, there's another category of food that's pretty hard to resist: junk food.
Ah, yes, the tempting treats. They definitely have their appeal.
They do. Our sources generally define junk food as things like those crunchy, salty chips, candies that give you a quick burst of energy, but then you crash, fast food that's so easy to grab when you're in a hurry, and of course, sugary sodas.
They're everywhere. And they're designed to be incredibly appealing.
They are. Let's be honest, we've all enjoyed these things at some point. But what's the nutritional picture looking like when we compare it to all those healthy foods we just talked about?
Well, it's pretty much the opposite. These foods are typically loaded with added sugar, often hidden in ways you wouldn't even realize, and high amounts of salt, which can impact things like your blood pressure, and unhealthy fats like those saturated and trans fats that can contribute to various health issues. And then on top of that, they're often very calorie dense. But here's the thing, and this is what makes them junk food. They offer very little in terms of essential vitamins, minerals, and fiber. It's like eating empty calories. You're filling up, but you're not nourishing your body.
And our sources point out that junk foods are specifically engineered for maximum taste and convenience. They're hitting those pleasure centers in our brain with that perfect combination of salt, sugar, and fat. And of course, they're incredibly easy to get your hands on.
Which explains why they're so popular.
Mm.
But we need to be aware of the potential downsides when these foods become a regular part of our diet.
Exactly, because it's not just about weight gain. Our sources point to some serious health risks associated with a diet high in junk food, like an increased risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even things like mood swings and energy crashes that can really affect your quality of life.
It's not just about how you look, it's about how you feel, both physically and mentally.
Here's something that really surprised me. Our source actually discusses research suggesting that junk food can affect the brain in ways that are similar to addictive drugs. Think about that. Those intense cravings, that feeling like you absolutely need it. It might not just be a lack of willpower. There might be some deeper neurological processes at play.
It's fascinating, really. Certain ingredients, particularly sugar, can trigger those reward pathways in the brain, releasing dopamine and creating that feeling of pleasure that we then start to crave.
No, it's not just about taste. It's about those underlying biological responses.
It's a complex interplay of factors.
Okay, so we've looked at the two ends of the spectrum, the healthy stuff and the not so healthy stuff. But the real question is, how do we find a sustainable middle ground? It can't be all or nothing, right?
Absolutely not. And thankfully, our sources really emphasize the power of moderation. It's not about eliminating everything you enjoy, it's about finding a balance that works for you.
Right. Because who wants to live a life without any treats?
Exactly. It's about enjoying those things in a way that doesn't derail your overall health goals.
And one of the strategies that stood out to me was the 80-20 rule. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. And for good reason. It's simple, it's flexible, and it works for a lot of people.
So for those who haven't heard of it, basically the idea is to aim for those healthy, nutrient-dense foods we talked about 80% of the time. And then, allow yourself to enjoy those more indulgent treats the remaining 20%. It takes the pressure off trying to be perfect all the time, which, let's face it, just isn't realistic for most of us.
Exactly. It's about making sustainable changes, not temporary restrictions.
And the sources actually give some pretty specific tips for making healthier choices without feeling deprived. Like, for example, instead of automatically reaching for a side of fries, why not try making some sweet potato wedges? You still get that satisfying texture, a little sweetness, but you're also getting more nutrients.
Right. It's about making those smart swaps. Another example that came up was what you choose to drink. Instead of always going for a soda, maybe try sparkling water with a splash of your favorite juice. You still get that fizzy, refreshing feeling, but without all the added sugar.
I love that. Simple changes that can actually make a big difference. And one of the things I've really appreciated is that the sources emphasize gradual change. It's not about overhauling your entire diet overnight, which can be incredibly overwhelming.
Right. It's like trying to climb a mountain in one giant leap. It's just not going to happen.
Exactly. It's about those small, consistent steps that eventually lead you to the top.
It's about building those healthy habits over time.
Speaking of challenges, we got a question from a listener, Maria, in Texas, that really resonated with me.
Oh, yes. Maria's question, a very common struggle.
She asks, how do I stop craving junk food when I'm stressed? I think a lot of us can relate to that. You have a tough day and suddenly all you want is that bag of chips or that comforting bowl of ice cream.
Absolutely. And our source material actually addresses this link between stress and cravings. It turns out that when we're stressed, our bodies release certain hormones that can actually increase our desire for those calorie-dense, highly palatable foods.
So it's not just a matter of willpower, it's like a biological response.
Exactly. Those foods can provide a temporary sense of comfort or reward, so we naturally reach for them when we're feeling stressed.
So it's like a coping mechanism, but it's not a very healthy one in the long run. So what can Maria and all of us do to manage those cravings?
Well, the source offers some really practical strategies. One of them is to make sure you always have healthy snacks readily available. Things like nuts, a piece of fruit, or some yogurt can help satisfy those hunger pangs without the sugar rush and crash that often comes with junk food.
So it's about being prepared.
Exactly. If you know you tend to reach for unhealthy snacks when you're stressed, having those healthier alternatives on hand can make a big difference.
Makes sense. What else?
Another tip is to pay attention to hydration. Sometimes what we perceive as a food craving is actually just our body signaling that it needs more fluids. So before you reach for that snack, try drinking a glass of water and see if that makes a difference.
That's a good one. It's so easy to forget to drink enough water throughout the day.
It is. And finally, the source recommends actively engaging in stress-reducing activities.
So not just focusing on the food itself, but addressing the underlying stress.
Exactly. Whether it's going for a walk, spending a few minutes journaling, listening to calming music, or even just taking a few deep breaths, finding healthy ways to manage your stress levels can have a huge impact on those stress-related food cravings.
It's like a holistic approach to well-being.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of food choices, a few key takeaways really stand out. It's about cultivating a sense of mindfulness around what you're eating, understanding the differences between those nutrient-packed foods that fuel your body and those more indulgent treats, and finding a sustainable balance that allows you to enjoy both without guilt or deprivation.
It's about making choices that support your overall well-being, not just in the short term, but for the long haul.
Absolutely. And remembering that small, consistent changes can add up to make a big difference over time.
Thinking about everything we've discussed, and especially that point about how certain foods can actually trigger those craving responses in our brains, it makes you really think about those seemingly small choices we make each day.
It does. It's about being aware of those potential triggers and having strategies in place to manage them.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening. Think about your own daily routine. Is there one small, realistic adjustment you can make today to start fueling your body a little differently?
It doesn't have to be a huge change. Maybe it's swapping that soda for sparkling water or adding an extra serving of veggies to your dinner.
It's about those little steps that can lead to big results over time. And if you found this deep dive helpful, we'd love it if you'd follow and rate the show. And feel free to share it with anyone you think might benefit from this information.
We're always eager to hear your questions and get your suggestions for future topics, so please send them our way at your email or social handle, as mentioned in the source.
Thanks so much for joining us for another deep dive.
We'll see you next time.